Some people seem to be having issues installing our new S2000 buttons, so we figured we'd film a short video just to make sure that you guys can have as smooth of an install as possible. This particular vehicle already has a Piolk button installed, but if we were to pretend it was the stock button, it would unscrew the same way. You just might need to use a vice grip to break it loose first, like we talked about in our other video. So the first step is to make sure the handbrake is in the engaged position. So that means just pull it up a few clicks until it feels tight. It seems like the problem that a lot of people are having is the threaded rod inside the handbrake is falling down too far for the button to be able to thread onto it. If you keep it in the engaged position, this can't happen. And if you do happen to let the handbrake drop and that rod falls in, I'll show you a quick trick to pull it back out very easily. So we'll go ahead and unscrew this button. So you can pretend that was removing your stock button, and you'll take your new blunt S2000 button. And what you want to make sure is that this threaded rod inside the handle is lined up with the center. This is pretty easy. You can usually just touch it with your fingertip and get it to stay in place. You know, at this point, if you wanted to turn the handbrake into like a drift handle, you would be removing the spring that's inside it. But in this case, we're just going to leave it in. You'll start to push it in, and as you're pushing it in, you want to turn it so that once it gets to the correct depth, the threads will start to catch. And there you can see I really only gave it about a full turn or so, and it's already starting to thread on. And then you can just turn it the rest of the way until it feels snug, and you're ready to go. So now, if you weren't able to get that in first try, and you're having issues with the threaded rod falling in, like let's say you were trying to push this button in and maybe you didn't get the rod lined up, or you, for some reason, let the handbrake drop like that. That rod really wants to fall deep in there. It can be difficult to bring it back forward. But what you're going to want to do is you'll leave the handbrake all the way down like that. If you have the spring inside, now would be a good time to take it out. It makes it a little bit easier to access the rod. And what you'll want to do is you're going to reach inside this handle with your finger until your fingernail can catch onto that threaded rod. And once you have your nail under one of the threads, you'll start to pull the handbrake back up. While you keep pulling out on that rod, the handbrake should engage, like right there. Now that rod is back in the forward position, where it's flush with the face of the handbrake. If you seem to be having trouble reaching your finger in there to get a hold of the threads, or your finger just won't fit in at all, it helps to have a pair of needle nose pliers. It's actually really easy to reach in there with these and get a hold of the rod and pull it forward as you pull up on the handbrake. And then when you let go of everything, the handbrake will stay in the engaged position and that rod will be back at the front of the handbrake. Making sure that the rod is centered, you can go ahead and put your spring back inside, just like that. Double check it's still centered again. And you'll take your button, push it in, give it some turns until those threads catch. Maybe pull it back up a little bit more, thread it in until it's snug. So there you have it. I know it might seem a little bit frustrating at first, but I assure you it's definitely possible to get it in. And as long as you make sure that threaded rod doesn't fall down, there's really no reason why you shouldn't be able to.